Darkcast Network, indie pods with a dark side.
Hey, little skeletons, I'm Gina.
And I'm Amber.
And this is Weird True Crime. Amber, I need to admit something to you.
Oh God, what?
So, I'm dealing with an addiction and it's getting a little out of control. I told myself that I'd only do it a few times, but it's beginning to take over my life and I don't really know what to do about it. So every time I go to the store, I come home with more plants.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was just supposed to be a challenge to myself to become more of a green thumb during lockdown because I couldn't keep anything alive, but now it's turned into a full-blown obsession. I have about 25 plants now, and the number keeps growing. It's the gorgeous leaves, the new growth. I love all of it. It's almost more rewarding than keeping my kids and pets alive at this point.
Yeah, okay. You've definitely achieved crazy plant lady status. I, on the other hand, am the complete opposite. And I have managed to kill just about every single plant that has ever crossed the threshold into my house.
Oh no.
Yeah, I even managed to kill a cactus once.
Okay, but see, that does take skill to kill a cactus because they literally need nothing.
Okay, in my defense, it was outside. And Texas did one of its crazy ice hurricane. It wasn't really ice current hurricane. I'm never going to let that go, by the way. The ice killed it. So technically it wasn't me. I mean,
But
shut up. Anyway.
Okay. I'm going to keep my comments to myself. Anyway.
Look, I managed to keep myself and my spawn alive. So I'm going to call that a win.
It's definitely the most important thing. Yes.
All this talk of plants leads us to our next case, though.
Oh, yeah.
Some serial killers have very distinct calling cards, like the BTK killer's poems or the Zodiac killer's coded messages.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are creepy as hell, and some are just plain weird, like this one. Although, I guess it can't really be called a calling card, and he wasn't really a serial killer, but I digress. The case we're going to be talking about today is horrific, tragic, and weird as hell. On November 9th, 2010, sometime after 11:30 p.m., 30-year-old Matthew Hoffman left his home in Mount Vernon, Ohio, and made his way to camp out for the night across the street of the house located at 481 King Beach Drive in Howard, Ohio, which was roughly about 20 minutes away. He had chosen this house as his mark to rob the next day. He parked his car in town and walked to the woods across the street from the house, arriving shortly after midnight. Then he bundled up in a sleeping bag to ward off the November chill and tucked in to keep watch on the lovely 2-story house in a somewhat secluded area. He dozed off, and when he woke sometime after 9 a.m. on November 10th, he watched a woman exit the house and leave in a pickup truck, leaving the driveway empty of vehicles. As soon as she was out of sight, Matthew made his way across the street and tried to enter through the front door, but it was locked. He noticed the garage door wasn't closed all the way, so he slid in under it. He had to kick in the door that led from the garage into the house to finally gain entry into the house. But once he was inside the home, he checked around to make sure there was no one else there. He felt excited being in the house, just the thrill of being in someone else's home without them being there, but he wasn't sure how long he would have before someone came home, so he began to look around the house. He was searching for anything of value that he could carry out easily, like jewelry or money, but he didn't find anything. Eventually, he was getting ready to leave when someone pulled into the driveway and made their way inside the home.
Uh-oh.
He was in the back bedrooms when they entered, meaning he was blocked in. He had 2 options to escape: either break a window and jump out, or confront the person head on. He had brought a knife with him for intimidation, in case he ran into someone and had to make an escape. The unexpected visitor made their way through the house to the back bedrooms where Matthew was, so he confronted them. He made the woman lie face down on the bed and took out his blackjack to try to knock her out. He proceeded to hit her a few times in the back of the head with the weapon, but it wasn't doing the trick. Panic started to set in. All of a sudden, another woman entered the bedroom and started yelling at Matthew. He had no idea when she got there, how she got there, or how she got in. Feeling stuck and out of options, Matthew picked up the knife he had placed on the nightstand.
Hold on a second. What is a blackjack exactly?
Okay, so I didn't know what it was either and had to look it up. A blackjack, or a sap/slapper, is a heavy leather pouch, like 8 to 12 inches long and filled with lead and sometimes a flexible steel rod. It was originally designed for use by police and security personnel.
Wait, so how did he get his hands on one?
Don't really know, but blackjacks are illegal weapons like police batons. He was obviously already making great choices.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let's pause and back up here a little bit. Howard is a small town located in Knox County, which is northeast of Columbus, Ohio. So, just to give you an idea of how small of a town we're dealing with, as of the 2010 census, the population of Howard was a whopping 242 people. This is where 32-year-old Tina Herman lived in a lovely little 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath house with her 2 children, Cody Maynard, age 11, and Sarah Maynard, age 13. She worked at the local Dairy Queen trying to provide the best life for herself and her children. Her whole life revolved around her kids. She got them involved in sports and made sure to attend every game and event, like any good mom does. And on the morning of November 10th of 2010, the day started off as any other day for the family. Cody and Sarah got up and left for school, and Tina left to go run to the store. Tina was actually living in that house with her boyfriend, Greg Borders, but due to their rocky relationship, she was planning on moving out. She actually had plans with her friend, Stephanie Spring, who lived 3 houses down. They were going to go that afternoon to look for a new place for Tina to move into. Stephanie was unfortunately the second woman that entered and surprised Matthew in the bedroom.
After Matthew picked up the knife, he turned and stabbed Tina twice in the back while she was still laying face down on the bed. Stephanie, trying to get out of danger, ran through the house to get away. Unfortunately, she ran into Tina's daughter Sarah's bedroom instead of towards the front door. Matthew caught up with her and stabbed her twice in the chest. Satisfied that Stephanie was no longer a concern, Matthew headed back to the first bedroom and stabbed Tina a couple more times until he knew she was also dead. Matthew was in a total state of shock at this point and proceeded to wander around the house, slowly coming to the realization of what he had just done. All the while, the family's miniature pinscher, Tanner, was barking at him, so trigger warning here. He decided to kill him as well. Matthew somehow came to the conclusion that his best plan of action was to dispose of the bodies and burn the house down. At first, he thought he could load them into the vehicle and drive it into Foundation Park Pond, where he would swim away as the vehicle sank. But he thought it was too cold, and he wasn't sure that he would be able to make it out of the water. His second idea was to, quote, process the bodies and dispose of them inside a hollow tree that he was familiar with. He dragged the bodies of the 2 women into the bathroom, where he began to process them both in the bathtub. He used garbage bags he had found inside the home to put the bodies in before he moved Stephanie's Jeep into the garage and loaded them up. He still had a couple of bags left to load up when he heard the children come into the house. Sarah immediately ran away into a bedroom, but Cody didn't get away in time, and Matthew stabbed him twice in the chest. Then he followed Sarah into the bedroom to make sure she wasn't calling for help, and when he discovered she wasn't on the phone, he found himself unable to kill her.
Okay, you said process the bodies. Do I want to know what that means?
That's literally the phrase Hoffman used in his confession. Guess that looked or sounded better on paper than dismember. Yeah.
Sure.
He actually dismembered their bodies in the bathtub before putting them into the garbage bags.
Process, dismember, they're both equally horrible. Now, we had mentioned before that Tina worked at the local Dairy Queen. When she didn't show up for her shift that Tuesday afternoon, her manager, Valerie Haythorne, called the police and reported it as it was extremely out of character for her to not show up to work without calling. A deputy was sent out to Tina's house for a welfare check, and from the outside, nothing seemed amiss. She had even driven by the house herself and noticed that Tina's truck was in the driveway along with another vehicle she didn't know, and she could see lights on in the house, so she just kept driving. The next morning, on November 11th, Stephanie Sprague's boyfriend also called the police to report her missing. Tina had missed a second day of work at this point, so her boss, Valerie, drove out to Tina's house to check on her again. Like the day before, everything looked normal from the outside and the lights were still on inside the house. But she did notice that Tina's truck was now missing. She crawled into the house through a window in the back. And when she entered, she started calling out for Tina and began searching for signs of anyone there. But oddly enough, the dog wasn't even barking. And when she made it into the bathroom, she knew something terrible had happened. She said, quote, "It was enough blood there that I knew there was a problem. Nobody cut their finger in that house," end quote. When the police entered the home, evidence indicated a brutal slaughter had taken place. There were 3 distinct areas where blood had pooled and splattered in the living room and bedrooms. These pools of blood had drag marks that led all the way to the bathroom. The tub was covered in blood. And the most disturbing discovery was the marking on the shower curtain that indicated there had been blood at least 2 inches deep in the tub at one point. All of this evidence led to the authorities to believe that the 4 missing people were most likely dead. That thought didn't last long, though, because they discovered a second set of footprints that led out to the garage. One set belonged to the killer, so they believed the second set was one of the missing people and remained hopeful whoever it was still alive.
Matthew couldn't bring himself to kill Sarah, so he took her with him?
That's what the investigators were leaning towards. They found an empty shoebox in Sarah's bedroom closet that matched the prints left in the blood, so they believed she was still alive, but taken captive.
It's better than nothing. Police had to work fast in order to find Sarah, so they started with the typical list of suspects: significant other, spouse. In Tina's case, they spoke with Greg, the soon-to-be ex-boyfriend. He let them know that he hadn't seen her, but since they were in the middle of an amicable breakup, it wasn't uncommon for them to go stretches of time without interacting. During a sweep of the house to look for clues, the police found a receipt and some grocery bags on the kitchen floor, time-stamped around 12 p.m. on Wednesday. Tina had been attacked shortly after then when she arrived home from the grocery store with the bags. Greg had an alibi for this time frame as he was at work between 12 and 4 p.m. The police then turned to Tina's ex and the children's father, Larry Maynard. He was genuinely distressed about the disappearance and also had a rock-solid alibi. So, with the usual suspects ruled out, the police turned to the public, releasing a bolo, or a be on the lookout, for Tina's truck. Her truck was located about 7 miles away in the parking lot of Kenyon College. Near her truck, they noticed a man creeping around the parking lot. He said his name was Matthew Hoffman, and he was just waiting for his girlfriend to get off of work from the Kenyon Inn nearby. They let him go.
How nauseating to think that the police had Matthew right there, and yet they had no idea.
Exactly. If they only knew that finding the truck would literally put them right next to the killer, finding her truck didn't yield any other new information for them either.
It also goes to show you how little awareness Matthew had of the circumstance he was in. He just murdered 3 people and he hangs around the victim's vehicle?
You'd think common sense would kick in and he'd book it, at least, maybe, possibly.
I mean, this is not unusual behavior for these types of characters, unfortunately. So, with nothing to go on, police returned to the scene to try to find some more clues. A Walmart bag containing a tarp and some trash bags were found in Tina's garage. So they returned to Walmart and used the barcodes from the items to locate the transaction and when they were purchased, which is super smart. And now, armed with this receipt and timestamp of the purchase, they try to match it up to the surveillance video to see if they could find who had purchased the items. Surprisingly, the video footage was pretty clear and they were able to get a shot of the man in question. The police made a note that the man purchasing the items in the store seemed to not be in a hurry, and he also seemed to know his way around, which indicated to them that he was a local or he had at least shopped at that store before. Video footage showed him leaving the store, getting into a Toyota Yaris, and driving away. Now that they have the make and model of the vehicle, their next step was to run a database search for all Yaris vehicles in the area. You will never guess whose name was on the list that popped up. Yep, our boy Matthew Hoffman. The deputy recalled speaking with him in the area where Tina's truck had been found, so Matthew Hoffman immediately became a suspect.
My God, I know I would have had an oh shit moment if I had been that deputy after discovering the connection.
Oh, for sure. And to make matters worse, Matthew had been in trouble with the law before in Colorado. Back in 2000 in Steamboat Springs, he was arrested for a robbery and arson. He claimed he lit the townhome on fire to cover up the robbery, and thankfully nobody was harmed. He was found guilty and sentenced to 8 years, but was released from the Colorado Department of Corrections in 2007.
He'd just gotten out.
I know.
The police rushed to obtain a no-knock search warrant, which basically meant they could show up to Matthew's house and bust the door in, which is exactly what they did just after daybreak on November 15th. A SWAT team busted into Matthew's house and apprehended him without incident. They found him snoozing on the couch.
Oh, gosh.
The team searched the basement where they found Sarah Maynard, alive, but bound and gagged, laying in a makeshift bed in a crawl space. Now, we know you're probably wondering what's so weird about this case. It's horrific and tragic, yes, but not necessarily weird so far. The weird part of this case comes to play when the investigators searched Matthew Hoffman's residence. Right after they entered the house, in the middle of the floor was a large tarp. On this tarp, piled up high enough to conceal a body, which is what the investigators were initially afraid of, was a pile of leaves. Literal leaves off of trees had been raked up and brought inside his home. Further search throughout the house yielded even more leaves. In the bathroom, hung all over the wall, were leaves in small plastic bags. You know, the ones you typically get from the grocery store or Walmart. The bags covered the walls like some makeshift insulation or poofy wallpaper.
What the hell?
When Sarah was discovered, the makeshift bed that she had been found on was also made of leaves. As it turns out, Matthew had recently lost his job as a tree trimmer, so there had been no shortage of leaves for him to access.
That's definitely a weird thing to have a fetish about.
Very strange indeed. Apparently, experts refer to the love of trees as dendrophilia. Sometimes it's merely just a deep respect and desire to care for the trees, while others feel a level of sexual attraction towards them.
Wow. Not judging anyone's kink. I mean, you do you, but this dude murdered people, kidnapped a girl, and kept her in a pile of leaves in his leaf house. So he's a freak show.
Yeah, Matthew took it way too far, for sure.
So, luckily, Sarah was recovered alive and unharmed for the most part. She told police that when Hoffman took her hostage, he repeatedly sexually assaulted her and left her tied up in the dank basement wearing a makeshift diaper he constructed out of a plastic bag. He even tied her to him when he slept to ensure she wouldn't escape. He constantly threatened that if she tried to run, that he would kill her. She was able to piece together some details for the authorities of what happened that afternoon when she arrived home from school with her brother. After Hoffman chased Sarah into the bedroom at the house, he tied her up with an electrical cord and kept her in the kitchen while he finished dismembering the bodies, including her little brother. Matthew placed her in Stephanie's Jeep and then drove her to his home and left her bound there. Sarah, thankfully, had not seen the rest of the house where the attack happened and didn't know what the fate of her mother, brother, and mother's friend was while she was held captive for 4 days. Unfortunately, this also meant that she wasn't able to tell the police what happened to Tina, Cody, or Stephanie.
I can't imagine what must have been going through her head during that time. Those 4 days must have seemed like an eternity.
Matthew had told the police that he treated Sarah well, gave her the book Treasure Island to read, and even watched a movie with her. But Sarah denied any of that. She said she was given the option to eat spoiled milk and cereal or squirrels from his freezer, and that she was left there alone for hours. All I can think is that at least she hadn't seen the crime scene fully before she was taken, so she didn't have those images replaying in her head constantly.
Well, the police had their suspect in custody. They had Sarah alive, but they still didn't know exactly what happened to Tina, Cody, and Stephanie. They interrogated Hoffman for hours. Hours. He did nothing but sit in silence. At one point, he made a gesture to his heart and then, like, a breaking motion as if to say he was heartbroken.
Oh, please.
The detective commented that he needed Matthew to speak. He didn't understand sign language. Again, this went on for hours. Finally, at one point, Matthew described a dream he had had where he was in a food processing plant. He opened a trash bag and saw the body parts inside, which gave him a knot in his stomach and caused the memories of the murders to come flooding back. This nightmare is what eventually prompted him to confess. Matthew tried to have the investigator kill him.
Wow.
He said he would write down the locations of the bodies on a piece of paper, then attempt to flee so the investigator could shoot him dead. When the investigator declined his request, Matthew stopped speaking again for another 2 days. Finally, on November 18th, 2010, a deal was struck. Matthew Hoffman agreed to disclose the location of the bodies and plead guilty without a trial as long as the death penalty was taken off the table.
Which I just want to say, it's really interesting to me that he tried to basically create a suicide by cop situation, but then when it came time for the plea deal, he wanted the death penalty to be taken off the table. So,
Yeah. One death was okay, but the other method was not.
right. Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting mental process on his part.
So, prosecutors conferred with the families of Tina, Cody, Sarah, and Stephanie, and the families agreed. They just wanted to bring their loved ones home. Matthew directed the authorities to a 60-foot tall, hollow tree near Fredericktown. He explained that he had used a rig and pulley system that he regularly used to climb trees in order to get to the top of the tree to lower the bodies inside. Inside the tree, authorities recovered bags containing the remains of Tina Herman, Cody Maynard, Stephanie Spring, and the family dog, Tanner.
Oh my gosh.
January 11th, 2011, Matthew Hoffman pleaded guilty to 10 separate felony charges, including aggravated murder and rape. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I'm glad he won't be able to set foot out of those prison walls, and Sarah can live the rest of her life with that comfort, at least.
Absolutely. She deserves to have whatever chance of a normal life she can after what she endured. Hopefully, Stephanie's family has also been able to get some comfort knowing that Matthew won't ever be able to rip apart another family like he did theirs.
You know, while looking into this case, there honestly wasn't much available about Matthew's background. He was born November 1st, 1980, so he had literally just had his 30th birthday right before this tragedy. As a teen, he was described as odd and a daredevil. Apparently, he was constantly climbing up trees and even got caught once climbing on the roof of the school. People couldn't quite put their finger on what it was about him, but they usually went by their dog's reactions. You know how people say dogs are excellent judges of character? Well, when neighbor dogs were near Matthew, they would just bark at him, and Matthew would just blankly stare back at the dogs. One neighbor even said that she told her kids when he was outside that they were to come inside and stay away from him. He had even been seen killing squirrels in his backyard and bringing them into the house. Evidence of that was later found when his home was searched, and all they found in his freezer were dead squirrels and popsicles.
That's a combination. You know, I typically trust the instinct of dogs, and that would have been a huge red flag.
Yeah, no kidding. If a dog doesn't trust you, then sorry, neither do I.
You know, it just seemed that in the month leading up to the incident, Matthew was going through a rough patch. He had recently been let go from his job and was collecting unemployment, and his car was also being repossessed. His girlfriend told the police that he had choked her on October 24th, so she and her young son had moved out. There were signs of mental illness here and there for sure, but it also seemed like he had it together enough to lead some semblance of a normal life. I mean, he had a girlfriend and everything, a live-in girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's just tragic that Tina Herman, Cody Maynard, and Stephanie Sprang had to lose their lives, and Sarah was subjected to unspeakable things because of him.
So, is that weird enough for y'all? What a sad, strange, twisted case. The cops basically had him too when they found him in the parking lot with Tina's truck. I hope Sarah has found some closure and is leading as normal of a life as she can. We'll lighten things up next week with another What the Fuck Wednesday when we talk about the funnier side of true crime. Those that have been listening for a while can probably tell that we've been playing around with the format and topics, and we would love to know what y'all think of the changes. So if you think it's just freaking amazing, leave us a 5-star rating and write us a review on your favorite podcast app. And if you can't write a review, you can email it to us at weirdtruecrime@gmail.com. We will give you a shout out on a future episode.
To get even more episode content and, dare I say, fantastic memes, follow us on Instagram. We're pretty active over there and love talking to everybody. If you want to talk to us even more, we finally made ourselves a Facebook group, so be sure to check that out and join in on the fun as well. Man, things are getting serious and, dare I say, professional.
What? Who even are we? I don't know. Things are crazy up in here. With that, until next time, stay safe.
And make good choices.
Bye. Oh, hello, we're recording.
I do kind of miss Zoom, the jarring, booming voice.
Recording in progress.
I don't know what to do with my life. Okay. Sorry, Dustin, here we go. Oh God, don't make that into a blooper.
He will.
Fuck. I forgot how to read for a second. I was like, what am I supposed to be doing?
What are we doing?
God, it's fucking Monday, that's for sure.
It feels like one, for sure.
Lord almighty. Okay, here we go. They started the typical list of suspects. Significant / other.
Nope.
Nope. Let's try that again. He let them know that he hadn't seen her, but since they were in the middle of an amicable...
That's a hard word.
All words are hard. Ugh. He said his name was Matthew Hoffman, and he was just waiting for his girlfriend to get off of work from the Kenyan
Ian.
Yeah, I was really hoping that wasn't as pronounced as I thought it was, but apparently it was.
The Kenyan Ian.
Sorry, y'all, my Texas just came out. He said his name was Matthew Hoffman, and he was just waiting for his girlfriend to get off of work from the Kenyan Inn. Oh, God! Kenyan Inn. Kenyan Inn. So I can say it now. Kenyan Inn.
Kenyan Inn.
He said his name was Matthew Hoffman, and he was just waiting for his girlfriend to get off of work from the Kenyan Inn. Damn it, Gina. Look, I had it that time. You stuffing your face in a jacket is what screwed me up. Or blanket or whatever the hell you're...
I'm sorry.
Dustin. Dustin, I'm sorry.
I knew I was going to laugh.
Okay. Real quick, I'm just going to use the screen to cover your face while I do this. Okay.
So, with nothing to go on, police returned to the scene to try to find some more clues. A Walmart.
Your turn.
It's my turn. Okay.
July 11th,
No.
2011.
Nope.
No, that was 2000. Yeah.
You said
What?
July.
No. Oh, I did say July. I just saw J and I went with it.
I was like, nope.
Nope. Wrong.
Nope, not July. Oh my god, I can't push the button.
Why can we never say bye at the same time?
We kind of did. I literally can't push the button. Okay.